What would you say if I told you that I have the magic key to unlocking your students' math success, even your students who are below grade level? In today's episode, we are joined by Jay Brown, who is going to be sharing all about how to increase academic achievement by systematically building student self-efficacy in math. Let's get started. Welcome to Solving for the Undefined podcast. I'm your host, Johanna, founder of Miss Kuiper's Classroom, the place that equips teachers in creating a healthy math classroom where students can thrive, no matter their academic abilities. But it's not always about the numbers, and that's why I'm here, bringing you the formulas to solve your problems, math and otherwise, plus strategies on cultivating that necessary math mindset. And that's what you can count on. All right, hello. Welcome to a brand new episode. Today we have Jay here with us to talk about self-efficacy in the math classroom. Welcome.
Hi, good morning. Well, hello. Good afternoon, whatever time it is.
Yes, I'm excited for this podcast. I think it's going to be very valuable for everyone listening and for me too, just learning more about how to help students within our math classrooms.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to be here. Just to chat with you this morning. We follow each other on social media and you post really great content. And I'm like, I feel like we would have like a really great conversation because like I feel like there's so much alignment there, just with your passion and your heart and what your desire for students. And so I'm excited. So yeah.
Thank you. That makes me happy.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, so I am Jay Brown. I am a former fifth grade math teacher. I was blessed with being able to teach fifth grade math for 10 years straight. But let me backtrack. I actually started off as a PE teacher. My first year teaching, I wanted to teach in a particular district. And so the only position available was PE. So I taught PE until I taught actually PE and reading. And then actually there was a math coach there at the school. And she was like, y'all have got to get that girl into like a classroom. Like y'all got to get her in there. And so then the next year I moved into teaching fifth grade math. But then I was like, I think I want to go down to third grade. And so then I went down to third grade for 2 years and I was like, give me my fifth graders back. And so I was blessed with teaching fifth grade math, specifically for like 10 years straight. And then I moved into an instructional coach role. And so I did that for a while. And then I moved out of that role. And while I was doing that, I was also, I worked a few years contracted with the state, reviewing curriculum for Tier 1 status, also developing content for the state. We had this initiative, Accelerate Math was the initiative. And so did a lot of work with that, creating content and resources for the state. And then then I became a certified math content leader, which was so yummy. I am like a math. And let me say, I like math. I like math like concepts, right? Like I nerd out over just the conceptual part of math. So I became certified in that. And so now I am an ed consultant for my husband's consulting firm, as well as another ed tech company. And so I have an ebook, a curriculum companion, and a course. And so that on how to accelerate math and embed social emotional learning inside the math classroom. And so that is part of the services that we offer to schools and districts through my husband's company. So yeah, that is what I'm doing and what I'm up to these days.
That is an amazing journey. Just like starting off as a PE teacher, going to fifth grade, then third grade to fifth grade, and then to where you are now. That is amazing. And I think it's so interesting too, because I feel like teachers, they find their grade and they find like what they like with students, and then they try something else and they're like, nope, go back. Because
No.
I taught mostly all eighth grade, but I had one sixth grade class, and I will never teach sixth grade again. Like eighth grade is where I belong.
That's so sweet. My husband says the same thing. He was a former middle school teacher, and he says the same thing about eighth grade. He's like, that's the sweet spot.
Mm-hmm. Yep, indeed. I feel like they're just mature enough, but they're still like kid, and you can
Yeah.
joke around with them. It's just like the perfect like
That's so sweet.
combination.
Yeah, yeah. But and and I'm sure you find it too. Like teachers do better whenever they are in areas where they feel like they can really thrive at, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I just think I think it's important. Like I was praying every year, please don't move me, please don't move me. But I thank God for amazing administrators who saw my strength and kept me where I
Mm-hmm.
was. So yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So I know you specialize in this accelerate math, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So talk to us a little bit about that and like what is self-efficacy?
Okay, all right. So I'll tell you the journey with self efficacy. I'll start there. So, really, I've always worked in areas that had high populations of students that struggled, right? And so I'm a big research person. I love research. And so and everything that I did inside of my classroom, I'm like, I'm going to make sure that it's research based, right? I'm not just doing things based off of my opinion and how I feel. And so I was just like on this journey to find out, like, okay, based on research, like what really helps move and grow students that struggle, like our low achieving students, what really helps them. And so as I'm like researching, I'm finding like all of these articles like math anxiety, math anxiety, math anxiety. I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is like a real legit thing. And so then I'm like focusing on math anxiety for a while. And then I'm like, okay, well, how do we like target math anxiety? And so I'm like researching that, and that's how I came to self-efficacy. And my husband is an actual researcher now, and so and so he introduced me to John Hattie. And John Hattie, oh my gosh, his research is amazing. It's like this ongoing study of like things that work best in education. And so he introduced me to John Hattie. And sure enough, I saw the list of influences, and right there at the top was student self efficacy. And I'm like, bingo! Is, like that is what I need to focus on, because I'm targeting how do I, I'm looking at how do I, remedy or help math anxiety, and I know it's self-efficacy, but then this research now shows that self-efficacy is one of the top influencers of student achievement. And so that is why, I've really focused on self-efficacy so much, because it showed, like the research shows, that students can achieve over 2 years of growth just by increasing, their self-efficacy.
Wow,
Yeah, two
that's
years to
amazing.
1 year. Yeah, so that's why.
Wow, of course. Like I that's amazing that just focusing on one thing can have like such an amazing like effect on a student's.
Yes.
That just like blows my
It
mind.
does, and it really does, because so many times, I know I thought that it was, these other factors that would really like move my students, right? I'm like making videos, sending videos home with students for them to watch with their parents, and y'all do this extra work at home, and all of these things, like I'm, trying to get students to do that I thought would move, to help me see student growth, and I wasn't seeing it, like, like not the results that
Mhm.
I wanted to see. And so when you look at something like that, it's just like, oh wow, like I've been kind of approaching this from the wrong end,
Mhm.
So because if we focus on self-efficacy, it just makes a lot of other challenges go away. Or it makes them at least, easier to help students overcome if we focus on self-efficacy first.
Mhm. And can you define self-efficacy for me?
Yes. So, very simple. It is a student's thoughts or opinions about if they can accomplish a task or not, right? So, and we kind of think of it like, oh, that's their confidence, but it's kind of really deeper than just their confidence, but because it's their thoughts, it's the mindset about how they see themselves. Am I capable of this? And then, a lot of times your students, they're experiencing, especially like your lower performing students, they're experiencing failure after failure after failure. So what do they start to think about themselves, right? Like, I'm a failure, I can't do this, I've tried, it's just not working out, I'm not measuring up to how, Paula on my right is,
Mhm.
performing. I can't do it. And that's where we get, right, like those comments about, I'm just not a math person,
Yeah.
because they think that if it doesn't come to them easily, right, that they're not going to be successful at it. And so self-efficacy really goes into really helping students with that awareness, which, and I don't want to go off track, but that's where, that social emotional learning component is tied into it, because it's really helping students develop this awareness about who they are. And just because it doesn't come to you this certain way, you might have to approach this a little different way, but that doesn't mean that it's not for you to see achievement in that area.
Mhm. I love seeing that connection between like the self-efficacy piece and like the social emotional learning. As a teacher, I get a lot of like push to like put SEL in the classroom, put SEL in the classroom, and there's not, while I can see like the benefits specifically, it's nice to see like the connection of like to the self-efficacy and how putting them together with self-efficacy can have like immense dividends or grow exponentially for students in the classroom.
Yeah, because you actually, like, and for me, as I was like doing all of my research, I saw a lot of overlap. And so when I was like thinking of ways to build and embed self-efficacy, I'm like, oh, you think growth mindset, right?
Mhm.
That's helping them build self-awareness. That's social emotional learning. Or you think goal setting, right? We're going to help students set these goals and only focus on, like, these attainable goals for them in their own individual journey. Well, that's self-management, another
Mhm.
social emotional component. And so it's really, you see it throughout all of the components of social emotional learning. So they really go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other, really.
Yeah. So, how does self-efficacy affect students, particularly when it comes to math?
Yeah. So, right, like, and I'm a visual person, so I have this visual that I created. But we're talking about like self-efficacy, and we're talking about our goal, our whole focus, the whole main point is student achievement, right? And
Mhm.
so if we have low student achievement, we have this, math anxiety. And if we have this math anxiety, then we have this low self-efficacy. And so when you think about it, it's really like when you have students that are not engaging in class, right? And we're trying to get them to engage, and we're like, I just hear crickets in my classroom.
Yep.
Well, it's because of self-efficacy, right? Like, they're afraid to speak up because they don't feel like their thoughts that they have, they don't feel like they can contribute anything that's valuable or
Mhm.
anything that might, make sense. So it affects them there. It affects them when we're thinking about, even you think about your engagement with your classroom discussions, or you think about your engagement with just students, answering out loud, or you think about their work ethic, right? They're not doing the work that's on the paper because self-efficacy, right? They don't
Mhm.
feel like they are capable, and they don't feel like they have the proper supports to be able to accomplish this task. For sure, they are like your engagement and your work ethic, two big areas, which if we're not engaged, we're not
Mhm.
learning. So
Yeah.
for sure, those are two, main areas that I can think of. I'm sure you've seen, some other areas in your classrooms as well, that self-efficacy definitely plays a big role in those areas.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I resonated with like giving a question and having students just crickets of no one wants to share and no one wants to participate. So what are some steps that teachers can take in their classroom to kind of help students build that?
When you think about, and I think about, I equate this to Instagram for me.
Nice. I love analogies.
Yeah, because when you think about Instagram, right, you think about, for at least for me, I feel like a lot of times it can be like this judgy place. where, there's not much room for error or fault. You say something, somebody doesn't agree with it, and then it just, it blows up. And so, like, I do tread lightly on Instagram. And I'm sure I would probably post more and give more of my opinion if I didn't feel like I was gonna, people were gonna like
Mm-hmm.
come attack me. And so I equate that to the math classroom because, students go into the math classroom and they're dealing with self-efficacy or poor self-efficacy. And it's like, I'm afraid. I'm afraid to speak up. I'm afraid to try because I don't feel like this environment supports me. And so that's the first place to start, is the environment, right? Making sure that we build this environment in our classrooms where students feel welcome, where they feel loved, appreciated, valued, all of that. Just the environment. Like, we want growth mindset, like fully growth mindset, not just, we talk about it at the beginning of the school year and then never touch it again, and you focus a lot on culture as well, right? Like that math classroom culture. Yeah. So that is so important. Like, that's why when I saw you, like, and I was like, yes, she gets it. Somebody else, like, feels the same way, because that's the first part of it.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, that's the first part of it. And, I just feel like a lot of times that part is skipped. We don't
Mm.
focus on environment, a lot of times, especially a lot of math minded people.
Mm-hmm.
We can focus so much on content. And I know for me, like, that was an adjustment for me, because my husband's very, like, he's compassionate. I'm compassionate. I'm very compassionate. However, I'm task oriented. And
Uh-huh.
so for me, I have to make sure that I am focusing first, or I had to, when I was in the classroom, I had to make sure that I was focusing first on environment, and content will come, but first I have to have that environment. So that's one place to get started, making sure that, we have those supports in place, that we're really truly focusing on, not just one time at the beginning of the year, focusing on growth mindset, or, we have the affirmation station in the room, but it's just kind of decor,
Yeah.
and we're not really like utilizing it because it's
Mm-hmm.
powerful, like it has a lot of power to it, but like really making sure that our classroom is embedded, and like making sure too, because there's a lot that is said in the hidden curriculum where we can pass off these messages that to students that we don't mean to pass off. It's just like, I don't mean to, but sometimes my actions say something different than what my words are saying. So really just evaluating, like, what are my actions inside of the classroom, even, something as simple as allowing test retakes. If I don't allow you to retake a test, then what am I communicating to you? Like,
Yeah.
what's the goal here? Like, I want to see you succeed. Things like that, just environment, and just making sure that our actions truly line up to what I'm saying. And there are more that I could go on and on about. I don't know if you want me to keep going, but
Feel free. I'm loving this.
so environment. And then, I'm a big fan of scaffolded supports. Like, anchor, and I know sometimes people feel different about them, like they feel like, oh well, you're babying them, and it's not. There's a way to do it where, and students need it, right? Like I said, they have
Mm-hmm.
to feel supported. They have to feel like this environment is an environment that I can thrive in. Like, this environment is an environment where I'm supported in. And so having your scaffolded supports, such as those anchor charts, big, 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 big. I'm a huge fan of anchor charts. And because I saw so much success with them in my
Mm-hmm.
classroom. And I just remember I had an amazing, so one year I taught at a school, well, not one year, I was in a district where I don't know if you're familiar with the company NIET. And so I don't want to mess up the acronym, so I'm not even going to try to tell you what it stands for. But they have these schools that have heavy instructional support. The instructional coach is like called a master teacher. And so I had a master teacher. She was amazing. She was so good. Shout out to Jim Board. But she was so good. But I remember her, she was really, the person that introduced me to these anchor charts. And so, but really helping students and success criteria, and really not, she didn't introduce me to anchor charts, correction. The success criteria, but they go hand in hand. I'm
Mhm.
rambling. Let me tie this all together. But really making sure that students, and it's not giving them like steps in a process. It's not like taking the conceptual understanding away from math, but it's really helping students think through like, okay, if I'm teaching a new concept, okay, what did we just do? Like, let's step this out. Okay, first we thought about what the whole was. Okay, all right. So that helps me, no, who doesn't understand what a whole is, right? And then, okay, so what did we do after we identified the whole? Then we partitioned it into, halves. Okay, so then that, and so really, we kind of break it down with the anchor chart, modeling how we're doing it, solving it, and then having our success criteria. And then after that, students can really begin to like self monitor and self assess because they know, and that's how they feel supported. Because if I'm looking at my anchor chart on my success criteria, I can tell you exactly where my breakdown is at and I can get support. Versus if a student just says, oh, I need help, they might not feel as supported from you because they might not be able to communicate clearly where they need the help at. And so then
Mhm.
they feel like, well, my teacher doesn't help me. Well, it's not that your teacher doesn't want to help you, but we might need some clarifying of where the help is needed. So,
I really like that piece of having the success criteria listed, because I run into that problem too of like students asking for help, and my immediate follow up is, well, what would you like help with, or like
mhm.
ask me a question. And sometimes, a lot of the times, I get a student response of like, I don't know, or all of it. And so it doesn't help me necessarily understand where the student is stuck. And
Yes.
so having that success criteria where students can point out, I'm stuck on this part right here, will allow them the voice to be able to communicate and help me understand what I can do to really help that student be successful and feel successful at the math.
Yes, absolutely. And I let them use it on assessments. I would let them use it on assessments. You use it for as long as you feel like you need to use it for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Until you feel comfortable, and some people may not agree with that. They're like, well, they got to learn it, but how are they going to learn it if they're not supported throughout their learning journey? So,
Mm-hmm.
those are just, two big ones that I would say for sure, like starting places for increasing student self-efficacy.
And using it on an assessment, I know, like you said, like some people would have some things to say about that. For me, if a student is going to struggle on an assessment and that's the piece that would have them the confidence to be able to show that you that they understand it, then that's okay. Like I think that's totally fine. And
Yes.
for a student who may not understand it yet, it's not going to be the make or break factor for them showing like work beyond their abilities, if that makes sense. So
Right.
I think it's a win-win situation of having something that students can refer back to, because going back to like the math anxiety piece, sometimes that anxiety can be so overwhelming that it just like blocks out what you remember, and just having something to refer back to be like, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing, I've got this, rather than just it like all just like flooding away from your brain.
Yes, I'm glad you said that because it is actually a research based strategy for aiding, for support, for decreasing math anxiety. It's actually like research based for exactly the reason you just said. Because, yeah, like their frontal lobes are just like their working memory is just like blocked. And so, like, nothing is coming in. And so, if they have something, that decreases that math anxiety because they're not trying to rely on their working memory, but they have something like that they can put their finger on and say, okay, this is where I am. And to your point too, especially the way that, the success criteria is created, if they know how to partition, if they know what that word is, like that's good.
Uh-huh.
Like
Yeah.
if they know what a whole, like if they can follow the success, because it's not just do this, do that, do that. But if they understand the success criteria, then you know that they have some type of conceptual understanding. So it's not just, oh, I'm allowing you to cheat. It's not that. So yeah.
Not at all. I'm interrupting today's episode to ask you a vital question. Do you have the tools in your classroom for student success? Well, wonder no more, because I have a way for you to check your work. My new guide, 7 Math Teacher Must-Haves for Student Success, has the top 7 items you need in your classroom. From classroom staples to manipulatives that are often missed, this checklist will ensure that your students have a successful school year. Additionally, each item shows the best budget and splurge options. Download the 7 Math Teacher Must-Haves for Student Success after listening to today's episode by going to misskuiper.com/guide. So, thinking more about like having a mindset of for yourself too as a teacher of how to bring this within the classroom, what is one way that a teacher could get started kind of promoting positive self-efficacy in the classroom?
I think something as simple as when students first enter into the classroom, right? That check-in. Because, like, and it could be, I know sometimes people feel like, well, I don't have time to do like a check-in, or do morning meetings, or, do any of that stuff. Like, I don't have time to do it. If you feel like you don't have time to do like a full-blown morning meeting, maybe try like one day a week where we do a morning meeting and kind of really check in. Because like, you never know how students are feeling, what they're going through. And even just, sometimes like I would ask questions that were like about their feelings in math, right? Like, how are you feeling, with the current skill that we're working on? Just checking in with that. Or like a question of the day, if, students are dealing with like anxiety about just a math classroom, welcoming them into the classroom, doing a check-in that kind of gets their mind off of math and just builds that relationship with you as the teacher. Because that's why I do like the check-in point, because I see it as a strong, solid relationship builder, and the students get to know you, you get to know them. That's why I think that is a critical starting point, because before we even get this math class started, let's connect and let's get out some emotions. Let's figure out what's going on. And I was even going to say, like, I would do a quote of the month. And so in that check-in time, whatever our quote of the month was, we talked about it. Like, how does that apply to the current skill that we're doing? Like, how can you, like, for example, and I always use this one, but this is one of my favorites. Einstein has a quote: "It's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I stay with problems longer," right? So like, yeah, I know Einstein, and so I love it because everyone always associates Einstein with being like this big brain, super smart, whatever. But even Einstein said that's not what it is. It's, I stick with problems longer. And so that, communicates effort. And so if in that morning part of the classroom, if that's our quote of the month, then we're talking about, okay, how can I show a little bit more effort today, right? Or what concept or what skill are we working on that might require me to put forth a little bit more effort today, right? And so really just building that support again, because students feel supported, they feel heard, all of that, the goodness, and so much goodness can come out of just that like intro part of the class, just to get started. And I feel like, because you find that if you start there, as you're going throughout your lesson, right? Like, you can pull so much information from that, like, that can benefit you while you're teaching. If a student said, okay, I need to put forth more effort in, the skill of finding a fraction of a set, then that you can remind that student, okay, so hey, remember we said today that this is what we're going to focus on, right? You said it,
Yeah.
and it puts it back on them. Like, I'm not making you do this, but this is something that you said that you wanted to do. So I just want to help support you in your goals.
I like those a lot. One of my favorite things that our school really pushes is like greeting students at the door. Like, we stand outside during the passing time and we greet every kid that walks in. And I went to like visit other schools and that's not their norm, and it was like weird to me. And I'm like, I love that our school wants to promote this enough that it's like for we have to be in the halls during passing time, like saying hi to kids, welcoming them into the
Yes.
classroom. And that gives you so much information too of like where students are at emotionally that day. Because a kid who always comes in and says hi to you one day just like doesn't, you know
You
something's
know,
up, and
something's
it,
up.
yeah, and you can like check in with the kid and be like, hey, I noticed you seem to be down today. Something going on? Or would you like to talk about it? Or just giving them the opportunity to know that you noticed. And because even just that noticing piece can be so valuable to a student of
Yes.
like, oh, people notice me or they care enough to like ask me about it. I think can be such like a huge driving factor of feeling like they belong within a classroom and it's not just a person in a room, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree. And, you know, I know there was a year that I really struggled with it. I'm just gonna be honest with like getting to because if school started like at 8 and once I had a kid, it was just like traffic in the morning. It was just,
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous. But being at my door in the morning, like I said, there was a year where I really struggled to get to work on time so I could be at my door in the morning. But when I did, I saw so much value in it, right? And you see the some people have the high five handshake, but
Mm-hmm.
to see like your teammates doing that as well, and then like you look next door to you and they have like these secret handshakes that they're doing with certain kids,
Uh-huh.
and it's just like, oh my goodness, like I want that too. I even thought of like the other day an idea of just like a way to even have like greet students at the door and kind of in the moment kind of see where they are, like having how like I know when I was in grade school my teacher would put like marbles in a jar, and
Mm-hmm.
once the jar filled up, we got a treat or whatever, but not that same concept, but the whole concept of like the jar. But having like a jar, and when students come in the morning, either doing like these color coded marbles that go with like their emotions, or if
Mm-hmm.
marbles are too loud, maybe like the little pom pom
Uh-huh.
balls, like color code those and like have them drop it in the jar. So before you even get started, like you can look at this jar and kind of see, okay, like what color, what color
Yeah.
are today. So I even thought about, that as just kind of like a great way, because we teach students to have awareness, but we also have to have that awareness. And so that's just a great way to kind of greet students at the door, and then also at the same time as they're coming in, get them to kind of check in with their emotions just really
Mm-hmm.
quickly so we can have that awareness.
I like that because I feel like for middle schoolers they would do that because pom poms are so much fun. So they'd want to like take one and like place it in a jar, and
Yeah.
it helps them identify the emotion. And I know when students are able to identify the emotion, it's a lot easier for them to deal with that emotion
Yes.
because
Yes.
sometimes they have big feelings and they don't know what those
Especially
big
middle school.
feelings are. Especially middle school. Yes. And so having them just take a moment to identify the emotion can be so relieving. And I know we have these things called refocus room slips. And anytime a student just like needs like a break or they're not able to function within a classroom, we will send them to another classroom and we'll give them a refocus slip.
I
And
love
one of the
that.
things, yes, and one of the things that we did this year on them, this is like a school wide thing, so we all have like the same paper. One of the things we have on there is like 5 different emojis with the emotion labeled underneath of like, how are
Hmm.
you feeling? And
Hmm.
allowing them to identify what emotion they were feeling and then kind of like sentence frames to kind of like think through it before
Yeah.
then re-entering into the classroom. And I love that piece.
Yes, because it doesn't help. Because, and as you were talking, I was kind of like thinking about that because I'm like, when students enter into a classroom, you may enter one way, but my goal is that if you entered in, any way other than happy or jovial, right? Like my goal is to help you like get to a different emotion, right? Because we don't
Mm-hmm.
want them to then attach to that emotion and say, well, I'm just a depressed person, like we don't
Yeah.
want them to take, even though that may be the emotion that they are feeling, they may be feeling down or whatever in the moment. We don't want them to take on that identity.
Yeah.
So really making sure that we're aware of where they are. And if it's not, at a place of homeostasis, then we want to help you get to, a better place.
Exactly. I love that. So, as we wrap up the episode today, are there any other things in terms of self efficacy or social emotional learning that you wanted to share with us today?
I'm so sad that we're wrapping up because I
I know.
really enjoy talking to you. Oh my word. I love it. We got to do this again.
Yes, we definitely
Um,
need to do another episode
yeah,
together.
and I love how you have like that middle school perspective. I taught fifth grade, but they sometimes they think they're middle school.
Yeah.
But no, like so, just I think we kind of touched on like just some great getting started tips for increasing self-efficacy and really not, and I tell people like I'm not a fluff type teacher. I can appear to be like frou happy, whatever.
Uh-huh.
But like if it's not going to add value, then like I'm not about it. And so, when we think about self-efficacy, and if, I guess like my passion really is to get people to see like self-efficacy, social emotional learning from a different lens, because it's not, I just feel like if people can see that if we start there, like give it a try and start there, start increasing student self-efficacy, start focusing on social emotional learning and embedding it into the classroom, any area that you see that it can fit really, right? But if we just give it a try and start there, we will see so many other areas start to, like so many other areas that we're struggling in, we will see them, start to decrease. Like your engagement's going to go up, the work ethic's going to go up, you're going to start seeing, students not be as afraid of math, and they will be excited about it. I know when students would come into my class at the beginning of the school year and they'd be like, oh math, like I'm afraid, like literally afraid of fifth grade math. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you are going to love math. And like that was always my goal. My goal was always to help them love math and not see it as something, just as, scary. And I remember every year, as soon as we would get started and we would use manipulatives and use models and different things to help solve, those complex problems, they would say, oh my goodness, this is so much fun, I love doing this. And I'm like, you see, because it doesn't have to be, so scary. But anyway, I was saying that to say, give it a try, start on the other end of it, right? Like let's start where we can get the most bang for our buck, and we'll see those other struggles start to decrease. But I do have, like in my research of, trying to figure out like, how do I tackle this? There were numerous books that I did read. And so I can share a few if you want me to. It's not a like an exhaustive list, but a few that, of course, like Mindset by Carol Dweck. She's a game changer.
I love that book.
Yes, she is amazing. Another good one was Teaching with the Heart and Mind. Her name is, I don't want to mess it up. Lo, I don't know if it's Lorea or Lorray, but it's Lorea Martinez Perez. It's a really good one, like very
Hmm.
practical things to do. And then another great one is All Learning is Social and Emotional. It's such a good one. It's such
I'll have to check it
Oh
out.
my gosh, All Learning is Social and Emotional. And it's by Frey and Fisher are two of the authors, and then there's
Hmm.
another person, Smith. So it's a really good one. And then there's another one, I can't think of the name of it. Oh, it's Social Emotional Learning in the Brain.
Okay.
So all really great, like, oh, there's
Go for it. Go for
oh, there's another
it.
one. The Growth Mindset Coach is another really good one, but just a lot of practical ways to create that environment for students. So
Hmm.
those are,
Awesome.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love that you shared so many resources for us, because that's one thing that I love is having an episode and having people be able to take something and like continue learning about it. So now they have tons of choices of what they can look forward to next in terms of working on growth mindset and social emotional learning, self-efficacy, and growth mindset. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, like I said, they all go together. Like you really can't have one without the other.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us and share your expertise on self-efficacy in the classroom.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun. Like I said, we got to do it again. We got to chat more.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, love it.
So, as we end the episode today, I always ask this question. What is your favorite math-related joke or pun?
Okay, I'm not okay. So my husband like makes up jokes. He has like all these jokes. He makes up like all these jokes all the time, and I'm like, I can't. Let me see. So I don't know if this counts, but when teaching angles, and I think everyone does this, like like an acute angle, a cute little angle, but for an obtuse angle, to me it always looks like a lawn chair, and I love the beach. And so I always say big chilling on the beach because the obtuse angle is, larger. Um,
Uh-huh.
so I always say big chilling on the beach for the obtuse angle. So I don't know
I
if
like that.
but it reminds
That
me of
can
beach
count.
chair. So okay, count.
Yeah. I definitely see that. That's
Uh-huh.
cool.
Yeah, it
And
reminds.
the beach is more than 90 degrees sometimes, so that
Yeah,
works too.
there we go. There we go. Perfect.
Awesome. So where can people find you on socials or anywhere else?
Yes. So people can find me. Let's see. My website, of course, I have blogs written about like all of these topics, jbrownedu.com. And then on socials, on Instagram, I am at joyful.math there. I'm also on TikTok. Let me see what my name is on TikTok. If that tells you anything about my involvement on TikTok, I am there. Oh, it's the same thing as my Instagram one at joyful.math on TikTok as well. And yeah, that's where you can find me on those platforms.
Awesome. I will have to follow you on TikTok. I don't think I'm following you on TikTok yet.
Yeah, and mostly I post the same content that I post on Instagram. I'll post it
Uh-huh.
on TikTok. But yeah, let's see TikTok friends.
Yes, I like that. Well, I'm sad this is over. I had so much fun talking with you today.
I know. Oh, and one other thing, if I do have, if they want like a free guide to kind of help get started, I do have like the math mindset agenda slide poster. I think there's like a bookmark just to kind of help get started with embedding self-efficacy in the math classroom. You can find that free guide at www.jbrownedu.com/free guide. I haven't had coffee yet this morning, so my brain is like, what am I trying to say? But yeah, www.jbrownedu, the letter J, brownedu.com/free guide, and you'll get your starter pack.
Awesome. I will put that in the description as well, so you can click that and be transported to awesomeness.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
You
I'll
too.
calculator.
Oh, I like it. Got it. All right. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. To find all the links and resources to things talked about in this episode, head on over to MissKuipersClassroom.com and click on podcast.